to another episode of Let's Talk Boxing. I'm your girl, Leti.
I'm LB.
And let's get into this fight that a lot of people was talking about this weekend.
Yep, let's get it.
So we had Tszyu out of Australia.
AKA the silent killer or assassin. That's what I call him.
That's what you call him. Versus Tony Harrison out of Detroit.
AKA Super Bad.
Super Bad. All right, so.
Yeah.
How did this fight go for you? What did you see? Tell us your thoughts on it.
So this fight, if you didn't watch our prediction, we both had Super Bad. Tony Harrison thought he was going to get the decision, but it didn't play out that way. But the fight kind of played out. The actual fight itself is what I expected to see. We definitely saw Tszyu putting on that pressure from round 1 till the round was over, to round 9. But I kind of want to go back to the beginning in the fight, before the fight even started. I want to talk about that ring entrance that came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
The fire going on.
Yeah. Australia, they had the fire going on, and Tszyu, he got up on the little platform, and he had Notorious B.I.G. in the background. He even did a little. Yeah, he even did a little 1-2 step.
He did.
And I was like, uh-oh, Tony, that boy ready. Yeah. That boy ready. He looked comfortable. He up there doing that. He comfortable. He was ready to fight.
Yeah, he had a little swag going on. Even from the back, when he started walking from the back, he had this little Spanish music going on. The coming out to Big E. I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
And I mean, in regards to the Tony part, when he said, I wanted to hear people boo, he got the boo.
Yeah, he
was walking out, so he got that. At least he got something that he wanted out that night.
And leading up to this fight, Tony was talking a lot of stuff. He was talking, and I'm gonna say this. And I'm glad that he did, because it built up this fight.
That's exactly.
And had everybody wanting to see it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say, because if it wouldn't have been for the build-up that he did, I don't think as many people would have been excited to watch the fight. Obviously, we enjoy watching a boxing match, of course, but just all the shit talking he was doing, and just his personality with it. And then you got Tszyu on the other side that's just like calm and collective, and okay, I'm gonna just show my business in the ring. It's just such a good build-up to watch. And it got me engaged even more. And now I gotta say, after this fight, I'm even more excited to see that Charlo fight. If I'm keeping it 100, I don't know how I felt about that match. If I was super excited to see it before this, but Tszyu showed that he is the one except for the 4 belts, and now I can't wait for that fight.
The injury ended up being a blessing in disguise, because now he came out and he made
it for Tim.
He came out and he made a statement for why he deserves that shot. But let's let's kind of get into the fight.
As we know that Tim did get the stoppage. Shout out to Tszyu. He did his thing. He stopped Tony on the 9th round. And I gotta say, it did play out how I thought, but it didn't at the same time, because we knew that Tszyu did what Tszyu does. He came, he was ready to put the pressure on. He didn't look gassed. And none of the rounds, it seemed like he could have kept going for hella more rounds. And he did his thing. He brought his power, he pressured, and he did what he did. Now, Tony, on the other hand, there's never any excuses, and we don't, I don't even think Tony wants to, talk about excuses or whatever. But he just did not, something was off. He just didn't look like the regular Tony that we see in the ring. We definitely thought that he was going to be moving around the ring. Much more jabbing, moving, jabbing, but I did wanted to see more combinations, and I think I had talked about that in the other video. But I feel like, I don't know if it was because the ring was small, but he just was staying in the ropes a lot instead of just trying to keep it in the middle and the center and do what he does in other fights. And he just couldn't figure, I don't know if he couldn't figure Tszyu out, or if he was afraid to let go of his hands much because he felt Tszyu's power. I don't know. I just feel like it wasn't the regular Tony that we're used to seeing, where he's very skillful. His ring Q is on there, and he knows what he needs to do to survive or even win the rounds. And I just didn't see that from him. So, Tony, I don't know. He didn't look like he did usually in his performances, but I mean, Tszyu maybe couldn't let him bring that out of himself, because he probably just pressured him like that and made him feel his power, and he just, you know, couldn't let them hands go like we wanted to. I do gotta say that Tim, you know, just like in outside of the ring, he was calm and collective throughout the fight also. I don't think he didn't start off super aggressive on the first round. And I think he was just waiting, maybe to wanting to let Tony open up a little bit more, make him think like you got me, got me, because he was getting him with the jabs at first, but obviously it wasn't enough because Tszyu was just walking through them jabs. But what did you? I mean, and like I can say much about the fight, but I can't really say much because it was like the same thing going on throughout each round. Tszyu coming in with the pressure, throwing them power punches in, some good ass uppercuts that he landed, and then Tony moving back, jabbing, and he just didn't do enough movement. I just feel like that was just going on throughout all of the rounds until Tszyu closed the show out on the 9th round. Yeah. But what did you?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much like a lot of the things that you said. You know, coming into this fight, you know, we said that Tszyu was going to come and put that pressure on, and we said that that the main thing for Tony Harrison was going to be that jab. In the previous video, I talked about his pressure and the fact that, you know, he puts that pressure on, but he doesn't necessarily rush his punches, and he definitely takes his time. And you could actually see that in the fight. You know, he was taking his time before he was letting his hands go. In the first round, you know. In the first round, Tony came out and, you know, he pretty much won that round with his jab alone. Yeah. After that, you know, Tszyu stepped it up in the second round and put on the pressure, and, you know, it did. And like you said, you know, it wasn't. You know, Tony really just stayed on the ropes and really didn't use as much movement as he normally does. Even if you listen to the Jermell Charlo, who was on the telecast, he was like, they asked him, like, is there anything different that you're seeing in this fight? He goes, I never, you know, I usually, Tony Harrison uses a lot more movement. You know, I'm actually surprised that he's sitting there like that. And so that's kind of how it went from the second round. And then, and even in that second round, you know, Tony really, you know, he just kind of, like you said, he kind of looked off a little bit. Now in the third round, when he got caught by a nasty right hand from Tszyu, and it pretty much pushed Tony into the ropes. You know, and he ended up surviving that round. But after he came out of that round, he actually looked a lot better, and he actually Tony started to look more like Tony, and he started moving around the ring, and you can even see he just looked more fluid, more comfortable. You know, coming into this fight, you know, even though, you know, when they were going back and forth and they were talking mess to each other, you know, he said, Tszyu told Tony, hey, you know what, you know, if you're thinking that you're just gonna come in here, you know, I'm just a basic fighter, then you're gonna be in for a shock. And I definitely think that he did shock Tony. For the simple fact that even Tony said, you know, he was a lot sharper than I've seen him. And I will say this. One of the things that I did see him do that I hadn't seen him do in the previous fight with Tszyu was his counter punching. He was landing some nice counters, and, you know, he was able to, like that shot that put him into the ropes. That was a counter. He came right over the top of Tony's jab. And also the other thing, you know, we talked about Tony's jab. Tony's jab was effective, and, you know, it was effective, but it wasn't effective enough to deter Tszyu or to stop him. He would just swallow him, but he was landing the jab at will and snapping his head back at times. You know, even you started to mark him up, you know, from the jab alone. So, you know, he was having success that way. But I will say this: when you mentioned the fact that he wasn't, you know, letting his hands go with the combinations, when I watched the fight, you know, every time, if you look, when Tony threw that right hand, Tszyu was coming back with a counter quick, and he wasn't doing that in the previous fight when I saw him in Tszyu. And so that definitely, he definitely showed us that. And even at times when Tony was landing the right hand, he was willing to take the right hand just to counter him back with an uppercut.
He's used to getting hit, so he gonna take the punches.
Yeah, and so that was something that, you know, I hadn't seen from Tszyu before.
Yeah, and kind of to go off of that, remember in the press conference, Tony was telling him, man, you just nothing but a come forward fighter. Like, what else do you have? And then what Tim said, well, I ain't been in there with somebody to let me show them what else I have. So you have, the fighter that is the skillful fighter in there, and I guess he was able to get them counters in because he wasn't just in there brawling. He knew he had to counter punch after the jabs. Like, that was my way in. Yeah,
and even to kind of talk about that, I mean, you listen to Tim Tszyu after the fight, he said exactly like what you were saying, pretty much that he had to have that fighter. And he gave Tony his respect and saying, this is Tony was the smartest fighter that I fought against, and he made him think. And so that kind of goes along with what you were saying. Now, let's kind of get to these unofficial scorecards. During the fight, Steve Farhood, he pretty much was like, oh, I gave Tony the first round. And I was like,
nothing else.
Yeah, and nothing else. And when I saw the scorecards come across, I was like, am I tripping? Because there is no way that Tony only got one round.
Right.
And then I was like, you know what? Let's just watch the fight and let's wait to see what the judges had. And I was more aligned. We were more aligned with the judges.
Right.
What the judges had.
Right.
Some of those rounds. Where Tim Tszyu. There's some of these rounds where Tim Tszyu was just putting on the pressure. And he was throwing punches, but they weren't necessarily landing like that. Or he would land, a small amount of punches when Tony was landing, multiple jabs and a right hand here and there. But so for that reason, I was like, how, I really wasn't following Steve Farhood's, but and kind of in those middle rounds, Tony did do, there was points in the fight where he actually did fight off the ropes, pretty good in the beginning. I mean, in the middle of the rounds. But there was so many times in the fight when I was like, dang, why won't Tony wrap up? Because, and have the ref separate him so he can get back to the middle of the ring. Because, that way he wouldn't have fought so much on the ropes.
Yeah, he just wouldn't get off the ropes. Like we said, I think he was in the middle of the ring, maybe like the first, second round, and then he just never got back to that. Yeah,
and so, there was a lot of times, where Tim Tszyu was, catching Tony in close because I was like, man, just wrap him up right there instead of he kind of got caught in no man's land. And, that's where Tim Tszyu was able to have some success. But, I wish he would have wrapped up so, he could have reset and he could have got back in the middle of the ring. But another thing when it comes to Tim Tszyu. So, leading up into this fight, I was really talking about the lead hand of Tony Harrison. And it was very effective. But Tim Tszyu actually, his lead hand was actually effective as well. He was landing a lot of left hooks in there. That was giving Tony Harrison some problems. So he definitely, he definitely was showing power in both hands.
Yeah, he definitely ended up overwhelming Tony, and he just looked like the bigger, more powerful, and stronger fighter that day. Mm-hmm. But I mean, overall, Tim Tszyu closed the shit out of that show. Yeah. He got that knockout. Yeah. The ref stopped it, rightfully so. Honestly, I thought that they were going to throw the towel in. Something, because those were some brutal ass punches that he was taking, when he was getting knocked down. At one point, like you said, we were hoping that the ref jumped in or the fight was stopped a little, earlier before, because it kind of seemed like he was out on his feet a little bit at the time. Yeah, but I mean, it could go either way, and people can say like, oh, he got stopped too early or whatever. I just think that he took a lot of punishment and he should have took a knee, something. But I guess when you're in the mix, you're not thinking to take a knee or whatever. But anyway. Again, shout out to Tim Tszyu. He got that dub. Now we know what's next for him, for sure.
Yeah. We might as well just get to it. We're not going to jump around it. At this point, Tim Tszyu, he got through the playoffs, so bring on the Super Bowl. Bring on Jermell Charlo. Let's go.
I'm so happy that this Tony Harrison fight happened. I'm just, like I said, it just makes this fight so much bigger. Now Tim Tszyu really, he's gonna want to prove. Mm-hmm. Look, I got him out. I can get him out also. Yep. And we know that he's gonna be confident after defeating a previous world champion in Tony Harrison and the guy that beat Charlo. So he's definitely riding high. And he's riding so high. Look, he's been quiet this whole time. And as soon as he won, he said, "What's my name?" Mike Jones. Tim Tszyu.
Yeah, he's like, it was funny, but it was funny to see that. But leading up to this,
okay, and rightfully so. I mean, the quiet person, he got the knockout. Let's talk now. And like they said, do you want to send Mel a message? He said, I ain't gotta send no verbal message. He they can see the action or whatever. So okay, Tszyu. They were talking about the fight possibly having Mel said hopefully sometime in the summer he'll be back.
Yeah, he said by the end of the summer.
So and I know Tszyu, they don't want to wait past like July, they said, or something like that. Let's see. Yeah, so we're gonna see, but I will say this, just by listening to Mel, I definitely think that, well, not that I didn't think he wasn't already going to be ready, but I know he's going to be super ready. Even more.
Just by, him hearing the things that he was saying when he was critiquing Tony Harrison, because I was like, Mel, that's what he should be doing. But, so I he's definitely going to be prepared. He's going to be ready for this fight. I know probably just like us, he was in there getting hyped for this fight after watching.
Just like everybody watching
this. Everybody. So, but yeah, it was a great fight. It was a great fight. Tszyu, like you said, got the job done.
And I do gotta point out also, for Tony, we don't know if Tony's gonna fight again. I think he might be hanging up the gloves. Who knows?
His brother did have an interview where he was talking about, how, if it was up to him, he would like to see his brother hang up the gloves. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what they end up deciding and which way they go. But Tony is already, he's already a coach. He's got an undisputed champion in Alicia Baumgartner, and he also, he's already coaching, little kids and the amateurs, and that's good. I always enjoy seeing him do that. But yeah, that's pretty. That's the fight. Also, and shout out to the subscriber, Djembe, for supporting the channel and in the Cash App. We appreciate that. But yeah, that's all we got. So let us know below what you guys thought of the fight, how you saw it go. But that's all we got. So thanks for tuning in, y'all.
And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Or talk your shit.